Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to everyone who's here live and physical. Shabbat Shalom to everyone who's here on remote, either on Zoom or on YouTube live stream, Congregation Brith Shalom, whatever it is. How do we get there? YouTube, Congregation Brith Shalom. That's where we'll be, right here. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being here. A question was posed to the Committee of Jewish Law and Standards of the Rabbinical Assembly. That's a lot of words, so let me unpack that. The Rabbinical Assembly is the organization that I'm a member of, the RA. I pay my dues every year. It's a little annoying, but I'm in for the long haul. And so the Rabbinical Assembly has a body called the Committee of Jewish Law and Standards. And there sits 18 members of the Rabbinical Assembly, and they answer questions that we need to know the answers to in our day and age. For example, a question was posed to the Rabbinical Assembly: is it permitted to smoke cigarettes or prohibited? Is it permitted to smoke cigarettes or not? All right, so think about it for a second. Let it. If you were a rabbi and someone asked you, are you allowed to smoke cigarettes? Is it permitted to smoke cigarettes? What would be your likely answer? No, why? Okay, very good. All right, so open up to page 1117 for a second in our Humashim, and we'll just look at the what our Rabbinical Assembly rabbis took a look at when they were asked the following question. Now that the vaccines for COVID-19 are available, is there an obligation to be vaccinated? Do we have to do it? Or do we have a choice? Is it obligated, mandatory, according to Jewish law, or optional? So here we go. So that's the question, right? The question is, I'll read it to you verbatim from the minutes of the Rabbinical Assembly Committee session where they had the vote. Approved on January 1st, 2021 by a vote of 18-0-0, right? So 18-4, none against and none abstaining. So 18-0-0. And in it, they go through a very long, Jonah, how many pages is it? 15-page document that investigates, researches rabbinically, not scientifically, rabbinically, according to Jewish law, is it an obligation to get vaccinated? And so here's one, source. Here's one footnote from the 15-page paper. So they, here it is, at 117. Ki tivneh bayit chadash. When you build a new house, you shall make a parapet for your roof. Right, so people used to spend a lot of time on the roof because they didn't have air conditioning, and it was hot, and there was a breeze coming through. And so in Yerushalayim, Ranon, Al Hagag, a lot of things happened on the Gag. Ranon, what happened on the Gag? Batsheva was on the Gag. That's right, she was. No, let's not go there. I was like, I'm sorry. Anyway, Ki tivneh bayit chadash. When you build a new house, ve'asita ma'akeh beganecha. You shall build. Ve'asita. That's a command form. See, what is that, Eliezer? Command form. Ve'asita. So is it a command or an option? Ve'asita ma'akeh beganecha. You shall build a safety guard around your roof. V'lo tasim damim bebeitecha, so that you do not bring blood guilt on your house. What's the blood guilt? Somebody dies. Right? Ki yipol hanofel mimenu. Someone might fall. A lot of I'm sorry, I'm taking too long. I think more than I told you. Many chukim and mishpatim don't have explanations to them. Or just leave it blank, right? And actually, the other ones in this section not only don't have an explanation, but the rabbis don't even want us to ascribe an explanation. It's just do it, right? Just do it. It's an enactment. However, as you can clearly see in this pasuk, there's a really good reason why we are commanded to build a parapet on our roofs. Why? Someone might fall, that's why. 1800, now that vaccines for COVID-19 are available, is there an obligation to be vaccinated? Can Jewish institutions require vaccination for employees, students, and congregants? What should be the guidance? What should be the guidelines for their distribution of the vaccination? We're asking the rabbis. We're not asking a panel of doctors, we're asking the rabbis. Psak din, so there's 6 answers, 6 conclusions. I'm just going to read the first 2, and then Jonah will explain how we're going to apply them in our shul. Here's number 1. Taking preventative measures against the spread of COVID-19, such as getting vaccinated, wearing masks, frequently washing hands, and physically distancing, are mitzvot and mandated by halacha. Number 2, we reiterate that Jewish law obligates Jews to vaccinate themselves and others in their care with medical guidance, with vaccines that have a proven and safe track record.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So let's talk about how we've decided to apply this guidance to our community. The board of directors has spent time over the last month discussing and really diving into the appropriate way to apply these guidelines to us as a community. And so I wanted to spend some time sharing the conclusion we came to as a CBS Board of Trustees. You'll see this in writing this week coming up and distributed to the congregation as a whole, but I thought we would start here for the community that joins us here regularly on Shabbat mornings, both in person and remotely online. And so let's start. The first is the CBS Board of Trustees has formally endorsed the conclusion of the Rabbinical Assembly Committee on Rules and Standards, or whatever the actual right name is, I get it wrong every time, which is that as Jews, we are obligated to vaccinate and that we are obligated to vaccinate against COVID-19. First statement. Second statement is, well, what does that mean? What it means is that we're going to ask as a congregation that those who are medically eligible to vaccinate but have not done so join us remotely, either online or virtually, as part of our community, so as to both protect our community and in line with our values as a congregation. So that's the first statement. Now, I've had a lot of questions about this from congregants. Questions like, are we going to ask for proof of vaccination as a congregation? As a board of directors, as a board of trustees, we made a decision not to answer that question at this point. And that's because it's uncertain in particular under Texas law whether or not we can legally do so. And so there were laws passed in Texas recently over the last couple of months that prohibit businesses and government agencies for requesting proof of vaccinations. It is unclear whether or not they apply to religious organizations, but at this point we don't have a great answer there. And so we felt like until that answer is clear, we're putting that aside. And so we're going to do this based on a belief in the trust of our congregation and the relationships we all have together to follow those requests as a congregation. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, what does that mean for the rest of our policies as a congregation? I think, as we all know, the situation today is completely different here in Houston, Texas, than it was a month ago in terms of the vaccine and in terms of COVID and what's happening at a societal level. Many of you, or some of you, may have been on the Jewish Community Action Network call earlier this week, where they had a number of well-known physicians talking about the current state of COVID in the community. I am not a physician, so take this as a high-level repeat of a couple of the highlights from that call. First of all, we are at a state of severe transmission of COVID-19 in our community. In particular, the Delta variant is endemic here, and that transmission rate is much higher than it was even 3 or 4 weeks ago. And so if you look at the most recent Texas Medical Center data, and we're blessed to be able to have such great data sources available to us, The daily rate of infection locally is, I don't know, 15, 20 times higher than it was a month ago. Hospitalization rates are going up. The Delta variant is much more transmissive than was earlier variants, much closer to a chicken pox, for example, than a flu or other things that we experience in our day-to-day. And so there's a lot of COVID going around in our communities right now. What that means is the path we were going on for our reopening has to change. And so from a standards perspective, we're aligning our reopening guidelines with those of the CDC at this point, which means that we are going to continue to require masking inside of the synagogue on a go-forward basis until such time that we are no longer an area of severe or high transmission, or the CDC changes their recommendations, and then we'll readdress with our medical committees. And so the ask is going to be, and the requirement for being inside here with us in the congregation is required masking by all in the community. The second is we're going to recommend that those who may be immunocompromised in some way, but still vaccinated, likely should talk to their physicians about whether they should be joining us remotely or in person. And certainly if you're going to join us in person, we would strongly recommend looking at the best masks available to properly protect you in that state, to make sure that you're staying safe. The good news is we're at a point now where high quality masks are not hard to acquire. There are a wide variety of them. There are great sites that review them online. Wirecutter would be an example of a New York Times service that does this. There are others, but we don't have to rely upon the homemade masks of the beginning of the pandemic. You can get a good fitting, high quality mask that both protects you and those around you. A quick reminder that if you are vaccinated with the Delta variant, while the vaccines are incredibly powerful, right? They are continuing to do a great job, and this is from the JCAN meeting, in preventing hospitalization and death from COVID-19. You can still get infected with COVID. It's significantly rarer than if you're not vaccinated, but it can happen. And if you're symptomatic, you certainly can transmit COVID to others. And if you're asymptomatic, the data isn't clear yet. And so let's remember also, not only should we think about where we are, but let's think about if we have symptoms that seem like they might be COVID, let's assume you have COVID and stay home and join us remotely until such time as you get tested to help protect the community as well. What that also means is we're going to continue social distancing in the sanctuary. And if such time that you feel like you need to eat while you're here with us, please go outside and do so. It's much safer in that environment. And if we get to the point where we're offering kiddushes as a congregation more broadly, we'll be doing that outside as well, so as to provide a more protective environment for the shul. At the same time, what does that mean for high holidays? We were hoping that high holidays would be a more and more normal experience, even as short as 2, 3, or 4 weeks ago. But obviously we're not there yet. And so what we're doing for high holidays is we've made some changes in our plans, and this might continue to change, but we're going to announce coming up this week what the high holiday schedule looks like. The big changes from what we originally anticipated are that we're not going to be able to offer the wide variety of full day or full services long youth programming we would expect to provide. For the obvious reason that our youth population, especially those under 12, are not yet able to vaccinate. So what we're going to do is, in essence, bifurcate our community for Rosh Hashanah Day 1 and for Yom Kippur into a family service environment that will be held outside, providing therefore a much safer environment for the young among us who can't vaccinate but want to participate at the Discovery Nature Center. And we'll be doing that on the morning of Rosh Hashanah Day 1 and on the morning of Yom Kippur Day 1. And then we'll have our more normative main sanctuary ceremony here in the main sanctuary. What we don't know is what our participation levels are going to be like. So as part of the materials we're going to send out this week, we're going to send out a survey. It's not pre-registration. That's going to ask all of you to give us a sense based on the current environment and the standards I just described, whether you believe you'll be joining us online, in person here in the main sanctuary, or at the Nature Discovery Center family service. And the reason we're going to do that is we want to make sure that we can handle our expected capacity, understanding that we need to keep social distancing intact. And if we find that the capacity is more than we think we can handle, then we'll look at other mechanisms for managing those capacity levels. But I think the current thinking is we'll have a large portion of our congregation who's going to continue to join us remotely during the high holiday time. We'll have a portion here in person, and we're really setting off to provide a high quality hybrid experience where we'll have folks having honors and participating in Aliyot, just like we saw today, in a hybrid fashion to give choice to the congregation to make sure that it's as safe as an environment as possible. And so I'll stay a little bit after services if you have questions for me to answer those. But I wanted to give everyone a sense of where we landed as a board of directors, where we are as a community. And just as a reminder, the safest thing, as came up in the Jewish Community Action Network call, we can do to protect ourselves and those around us is to vaccinate. We will be having our next vaccine drive here in the shul on Monday morning if you have not vaccinated yet. And it is not too late to start that journey. Even a single shot is better than not having the vaccine at all. And so start if you can and you have not been able to so far. And we are vaccinating using the Pfizer vaccine. So if you have children 12 and up who need to be vaccinated as well, you can bring them on Monday also. And there will be more information in that in the Boker Tov. Question? No, it's open to the community. Yeah, sorry, the question was for folks who are online or remote, is the vaccine drive just for congregants or is it open to anyone? And the answer is it's open to the community. Question? No, they're welcome to come to Shabbat services. We ask that they mask. So we're asking everyone over the age of 2 to mask inside of the congregation and to socially distance. And so what we don't want to do is exclude those who are not yet medically eligible to vaccinate from participating with us, both in person or remotely. But we do ask for social distancing and masking in that case for everyone over the age of 2 in line with CDC guidance. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much. Let's continue with the service.